following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast, where we talk every week about who knows. It's always fun.
We don't even know half the time.
Yeah, I'm really tired this week. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was a rough one this week. I don't even know. It wasn't even anything particular. It was just one of those kinds of weeks where you just can't wait for it to be over.
Yeah. Well, I was on vacation last weekend, so I didn't get back. My week didn't start till Tuesday. I spent all of Monday in planes and driving, so that was a very tiring day.
Yikes.
And then, ironically, this week wasn't so bad work-wise because my boss was also on vacation, so it was like we didn't have to deal with anything during work, but it was just a lot of work this week.
Yeah. I kind of have like a little bit of the opposite problem where like work, I mean, I can't even say work's been drying up because it's been like this for a bit, but supposedly, apparently my boss keeps saying it's gonna pick back up, I'm still waiting for it.
Usually the summer's when everything picks up. But
Yeah, that's what they've been saying, but we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
As long as I have enough work to keep me busy, that's all I need.
Yeah, that's always the best. I mean, nothing's worse than like not being busy.
Mhm.
It's funny, there was no bosses in today, so like it was like free range. Nobody was working at all. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's been a couple weeks since we've recorded last. How have you been, Bill? What have you been up to? You want to talk about your adventures?
Well, I went to Alabama over the weekend. That was
Nice.
an experience. I went to go see an IndyCar race. I saw a mannequin fall on the track. That was fun.
Did somebody throw it there, or did it just kind of happen?
No, so the track we went to, the owner of the track is kind of an eccentric. Like he likes his art installations. So there's like all this goofy art around the track. Like there's literally a lake around the perimeter, and it's called the Lady of the Lake. And there's literally this giant woman just in the middle of the lake with like her head and her knees popping out. It's like okay,
Jesus.
and there's like little fake alligators all around the perimeter.
I'm imagining like the scrap guy from Iron Giant.
A little kind of.
This is scrap, and this is art.
Yeah. In the middle of the track, there was legit a giant spider. It's just there.
That's bizarre.
It's an interesting track. Beautiful. My favorite is the inflatable chapel.
Inflatable chat. That's a new one.
I posted it on Facebook. You can see some of the pictures. It is straight up just a chapel that's inflatable.
I'll have to check that out later.
They've had weddings in there.
Have they really?
Oh yeah.
God, talk about a shotgun wedding.
One of the most notable art things though was there was a mannequin of a woman named Georgina that was hanging from a bridge, like it just there. She'd been there for years, like since the track opened, and in the middle of the race, I guess when because they would change her outfit all the time. I guess the last person that put her back up there didn't secure her properly, so in the middle of the race, she just straight up falls on the track.
Jeez.
And got run over.
I'm sure probably quite a bit.
Imagine the driver. We saw it on TV and we were like, "What the fuck?" Like,
oh, jeez.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
I also went to the Bass Pro Shops that had the guy jumped in the tank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was at the Bass Pro Shops and I was looking at the fish tank. I'm like, that looks familiar. And then it kind of dawned on me and I looked it up. I'm like, hey, this is the fish tank where the guy jumped in. Started swimming with the fish.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think he was okay in the head. But
no, probably not.
Yeah, other than that, it was a fun trip. Went to this big car museum, saw a bunch of old cars and stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Alabama is interesting. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I can say now I've been to Alabama and Chicago because my layover was in Chicago.
I can say the same thing about Detroit. I've actually had two layovers in Detroit.
Yeah,
So I'm pretty well acquainted with their airport.
yeah. I didn't leave the airport, but I we had to stop in Chicago, and I just remember like being like, "Wow, this is crazy." And then we got to Alabama, and it's like, "Wow, this is so not as crazy."
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of flying and a lot of driving though.
Fun stuff. Um, so as you, Bill, know, I finished Chrono Trigger,
Hmm.
which was definitely a long time coming. I've been working on it for I feel like because I started playing it shortly after we got the news about Toriyama, so it's been probably like about a month and a half or so since I started it.
Yeah, no, it has.
So I it says I got ending number one, so I think I got the canon ending.
I think so. I'd have to re-look into that because there's so many endings in that game.
Also, maybe it was just the animations that were throwing me off with like hair color and such. Does Chrono marry Marl at the end?
That's the implication. I want to say
Because like that's what it seemed like, but she didn't really look like Marl. Maybe it was just the outfit and the hairstyle during
it's
the wedding
it's
that was different, or
it's supposed to be her.
okay.
Um, I mean, it would make the most sense, but
I mean, less so for me personally, just because she was not like as soon as I got another character, she was off my party like instantly.
fair. I mean, they have a lot of moments in the game though.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's supposed to be her. That's the implication at the end, anyways. You played the DS version, right?
Uh, I played the version on the Vita, so I think it's the PlayStation version.
Oh, okay. So that one still has the cutscenes.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, the DS version doesn't have them?
no, the DS version actually has the cutscenes, but it's based off the Super Nintendo version. It's kind of like a mix match of the two.
Okay.
They also added a bunch of stuff to connect it to Chrono Cross a little
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah, because Chrono
Um,
Cross is supposed to be like a sequel, kind of, but it's
it's
different
a
characters.
it is a very far off distance sequel. Like you can play Chrono Cross completely standalone and be perfectly fine. Honestly,
Yeah, because that's what I figured that they were part of like a series or something, but from my understanding, it's very different, and I don't think if I remember right, the full team isn't part of it anymore. Like I don't think Toriyama did the art for that one.
no, it's a completely different game. Honestly,
Gotcha.
similar ideas, but like the game itself, like the battle system's vastly different. It
Mhm.
feels different. It has it infamously has some of the, like one of the like it is one of those RPGs that has so many freaking party members. It's almost laughable.
Mhm.
Like there is so many party members, and it does a cool job like making you like interested in them because they have a lot of unique ones. But oh, that game is a chore to play. I do love it, but it is a lot.
Yeah, I have plenty of other JRPGs on my plate to deal with. Um,
I figured because unfortunately you weren't able to make the episode that we went over it. You saw the Spy Family movie recently.
I did, I did. Unfortunately, I the original plans was for me to be on that GNC episode, but I had some family issues last minute at the time, so I wasn't able to make it. Unfortunately, um, so I figured since I couldn't be there for that one, maybe we can give it some breathing room, wait for the home release to come out, and then we can do our episode on it.
Yeah, that would work. Um, and hopefully by then it'll be spaced out enough from like the GNZ episode.
Yeah, that's my thought. Like rather than having two episodes on the same subject within like a week or two of each other, you know,
Okay, maybe we can bring in a guest for that one as well.
that'd be
Someone
cool.
probably not Nave. No offense to Nave, just because we had him on the GNC episode. But
Oh, you did manage to find someone? Okay,
so it
good.
was going to be both of you guys, but it ended up just unfortunately not being able to work out. That's why when you see the thumbnail, you're the Geek Addicts logos in the thumbnail, even though unfortunately it was too late to take it out by the time I did all the editing. But
I gotcha.
We mentioned it in the episode.
I gotcha. But yeah, aside from that, I watched Trigun in the
Uh,
interim,
the old one or the new one?
the old one.
Okay. I've
Yeah,
heard good things. I haven't been able to watch that one yet.
it's a fun series. Is it Johnny Young Bosch who plays Vash?
I want to say yes, but I don't know for sure.
I think it is, which was wild because that would have been like an early role for him, I'd imagine, right?
Mm, I believe so.
It definitely kind of sounds like it's like the beginnings of the voice actors because it definitely has a very '90s feel to it
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
acting and such.
it is Vash. Yep, he is
Gotcha.
Johnny Young Bosch.
Um, but yeah, it was a fun series. I enjoyed it. It actually honestly had a lot of Kenshin vibes, only in more of a Western setting.
Okay, that's what I've heard. Um, ironically, the character Meryl is voiced by Karu. Uh, good dub, Karu.
That makes sense. I knew it sounded familiar. Um, but yeah, aside from that, Discord has spoken, so now I'm playing Persona 4.
Yeah, that's partially my fault. But
Yeah, well, to be honest, as soon as I put Persona 4 on the poll, I was like, that's probably gonna get baked. That's probably gonna be the one.
well, unfortunately, our server just doesn't have enough people in it to really make a huge like dent in a poll. There was a good amount. A couple of people did contribute. Unfortunately, somebody else also said Persona 4.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of them were games I wanted to play. And Persona 4 is definitely one of those long overdue ones.
Mm,
But at the same time, it's easily the longest one on the list one that I put on there by far. And
yes.
so it's probably going to be a while before I beat it. But I did start cracking into it. I only put like an hour and a half in so far, but I mean, I
You're
like what
playing.
I'm seeing.
You're playing the slowest part of the game.
Well, I mean, I don't mind it. Just kind of like I don't mind the slow burn. I mean, I know I'm getting into a long haul.
So
So
I'll say the first time around, the opening isn't bad. It's just when you play that game as many times as I have, that opening is very slow.
yeah, I can imagine you just having a show on in the background, just hitting A over and over.
There is a fast forward button feature, but even then, it's still a lot.
Yeah, you can. I just remember. Yeah, you can skip dialogue stuff and cutscenes. So
You never should though, because this game's story is amazing.
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to do that my first run through either way, but
Yeah,
I am
it's
very impressed with the animations and stuff for the cutscenes.
oh, yeah, especially for a 2008 game, a game from 2008 originally.
Wasn't it originally a PS2 game?
It was
Wow.
it was a very late PS2 game. You have to keep in mind Atlas at the time was struggling budget wise for a lot of things because they weren't owned by Sega yet at this point, so they really didn't have a huge budget to make all these games.
Mhm.
Um, so I believe they cut corners on a lot of places to get like better voice actors and stuff. Because the voice cast in 4 is amazing.
Yeah, I have noticed a bunch already. Um,
I mean,
is it the kid with the headphones? Is that Sasuke?
yeah, Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I thought it was.
the main character, even though he doesn't say much in the in the main game, the main character is Johnny Young Bosch.
Okay.
Um, in all the spin-offs, he talks all the time. He really doesn't talk a lot in the game,
I
the main
recognize the
game.
uncle a lot, his voice too, but I can't place it.
I'd have to relook it up. I forget who he is, but he's a pretty well known.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, there's a whole bunch of them though. You'll notice more the farther you get in.
Yeah, I started up and it defaulted into Japanese. I was like, wait, I thought there was an English version of this.
Oh no, there is.
So I had to wait until all the cutscenes and conversations and stuff were over so I could actually pause the game and change it.
Yeah, that's weird how it defaulted. Must have been the previous owner had it set for that or something.
It's the Switch version. It's downloaded, so
The Switch defaults to Japanese.
I guess.
Hmm. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I
Um,
wouldn't have realized it either because I would have changed it in the main menu, but the opening like animation was in English, so I didn't even think to check.
hmm, that's interesting.
But yeah, that's one that we're gonna be on, or I'm gonna be on for a while. I'll probably end up having a casual game going at the same time just to break it up a bit, just because it's a lot. Um,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
it's easily double plus the length of any of the other games I had on that poll. So
Oh, Dojima is played by JB Blanc.
I don't know the name. I'd have to look at their.
He plays like 30 characters in Hogwarts Legacy,
Oh,
apparently.
no kidding.
I'm trying to
My
see
wi-
what else he.
my wife would be familiar with him then.
Um, he doesn't do a lot of anime anymore. Mostly
Oh,
does games at this point.
well, whatever works for him.
Huh. I'm actually curious now because I swear I knew him from somewhere else.
Yeah, it sounded super familiar. But when I was still in the Japanese, like I was kind of expecting more of like a Patrick Sates, but that's not what it was once I switched it over.
Hmm.
It was definitely a more mild, like it was, it was still like a man's voice, but it wasn't like, Patrick Sates deep or anything.
He's very chill.
But I don't know. I'm enjoying what I've seen so far. I think I left off right after the uh falling into the TV screen thing with at the store.
Okay, so you're getting pretty close to where the game really picks up.
Yeah, and I met that bear guy.
Oh, Teddy.
Yeah,
There's
which
there's two camps. There's pro Teddy and anti Teddy.
no, there remains to be seen. I've only spoken to him once, so we'll see.
He's interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything because there's a lot. Teddy has a lot behind. I'm not. All the characters are complex in that game.
Mhm. No, I'm definitely looking forward to getting into it, but yeah, it's definitely gonna be a long haul. But I gotta say, Bill, I am currently playing your favorite game of all time, so the pressure's on, bro.
Which one's your favorite game of all
Fable
time?
2.
I was playing it.
You, all
Like
right.
I have like so many other games and shit to do.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
to be fair, Fable 2 is a considerably shorter game.
true. I'm playing 3DO games at the moment, and then I'm playing a 3D Dock Game Hero because that's a project I'm working on.
Mhm.
I have Fable 2 in the background though because I am looking forward to Fable the new one.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too. I'm gonna have to actually crack down and buy an Xbox.
yeah,
But
unless it gets
luckily the prices have gone down. Like when I was looking around for I think it was when I was getting a controller for the PlayStation before Christmas. I was at Best Buy and I saw that they were selling Xbox for like 250, which is like wow. It's like half price.
yeah, I they're kind of trying to sell those damn things now.
Yeah. Well, I
Oh,
figures that all the prices would drop after I buy my PlayStation. But
yeah,
either way, PlayStation was going to be first, and my Xbox is going to be my Fable machine,
yeah,
pretty much.
honestly. Um, yeah. Other than that, though, not a whole lot of other stuff to cover. Um, so do you think we should jump into the topic?
Yeah, I'm up.
All right. So we've been doing a lot of Toriyama lately on this show, and
Yeah, I realized that too when we decided to do this one.
yeah, so we're going to continue with that. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about Sandland. Mostly the series. We might also touch on the manga a little bit.
I got mine here for reference.
I should have grabbed it. Mine's upstairs somewhere. um,
That's all right. I only have a few points that I reread it today in preparation just for a little extra something.
hmm. Yes. So Sandland. Was this Toriyama's final thing he wrote, or like original thing, or
Uh, it's hard to say. I don't know if it definitely wasn't his final thing he wrote. A final original thing, maybe. A final thing that he wrote that wasn't based on a pre-existing universe or something he's already done, possibly.
okay?
Because this was released in 2000, I believe.
The
Um,
manga itself was yes.
yeah. Uh, The only other thing I can think of that he's released after that was Jocko, and then all of like the scripts and bullet points and stuff for Dragon Ball.
Hmm.
So I
And
think this was his last original work.
yeah, because Jocko's technically part of Dragon Ball now at this point.
Yes.
So
It was kind of like a stealth prequel to anyone reading
yeah,
it the first time.
yeah. um, yeah. So the Sandland for this episode, we're only going to be covering the first 6 episodes of the series because that's the first arc.
It's it's what um it's what the manga covers. Everything
Yes.
after that is anime original. So I figure, especially since the English dub hasn't finished for the second arc yet, it's we'll just put the focus on that part first. And then
That's what I thought because when I was watching the show last night, I did once I got through the first arc, I started watching what there was of the dub, and it is a very different feeling show after that.
yeah, I'm fairly sure that Toriyama did work on that second arc,
Hmm.
so it does have Toriyama's fingerprints on it, but yeah, it's not part of the original work.
You can really tell like the first part was clearly was clearly based off of something that was written in 2000 or 99 technically if you want to be real
Mhm.
about it. And then you watch the second arc and it's like the writing style is very similar but it also feels a lot different.
Yeah, um, yeah, because I did watch the first episode of that second arc because when the first batch released, that first episode was part of it.
Hmm.
Um, so I know the whole like I know there's a whole thing with another area and a couple new characters, one of which is very reminiscent to a Dragon Ball character.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so looking at the beginning of the book here, Toriyama had wrote that this was supposed to be just a story about an old man in a tank, which he just started doing just for fun.
I mean
But
he's not wrong.
somewhere along the way, he just kind of the story kind of went out of control and it just kind of became its own thing, which is kind of cool.
Hmm. Um so I'll say right off the bat for the anime, it is another it's another CGI anime which
Hmm.
these are just becoming so common now that it's you kind of just are getting used to them.
Yeah.
This one is very similar to Dragon Ball Super Superhero.
Hmm.
It's more refined though. Like it definitely looks like they've improved on this style considerably over the year, like since then. And
Yeah.
it looks pretty smooth. There's only a few moments where I'd see it and I'd kind of be like, doesn't look great. But
I think it lends itself very well to this particular story, though, in a way that it doesn't for Dragon Ball.
yeah, the setting does this style a lot of favors, I will say.
Hmm. For sure.
Do
Um,
you want to give like a basic summary of the plot?
Sure. So the story is basically about it's like a kind of like a dystopian future world where through natural disasters and human on human wars, um, basically the entire planet, as far as anyone knows, is completely desolate and just one giant desert. There's very little water to go around to the point where it's pretty much its own currency. Um,
Hmm.
and there are also demons living in this world. So it starts out with an old man named Rao showing up at the village of demons and recruiting a couple of demons to help him find the legendary lake. And that's basically the setup for it is a journey to go out and find water that isn't being sold at outrageous prices.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when I was watching this and the little bit I read. It, it's so funny because it was 2000 and Dragon Ball very much never really strayed into like real world issues and stuff. This
Mhm.
one I felt like Toriyama like really had some anvils he needed to drop in
Yeah, for
writing.
sure.
I was like, oh, this was topical for 2000, I guess.
Yeah, because it deals a lot with like the violent nature of humans. It even touches on racism a little bit with the animosity between humans and demons.
Which
Um,
I appreciated that because like it reminded me a lot of Inuyasha in a lot of ways.
yeah, for sure. Because it's actually really funny because you find out as you go along the demons actually aren't that bad. They just like pulling pranks.
Yeah, they're honestly just kind of goofballs that hang out, and then
Mhm.
they just honestly humanity is the villains in this series.
Oh, for sure, easily.
So only some of them though. It gets more interesting the farther you get in, the more you learn.
Mhm.
There's also a big environmentalism overarching like plot thing, which was pretty big around the 2000s. So
Oh, for sure.
that makes a lot of sense. It's
Mhm.
interesting with Toriyama's style. Like it was an odd like twist because I'm so used to like his comedy stuff with like Doctor Stump and then like Dragon Ball.
Yeah, and he definitely leans into that with this story as well. But it definitely has its more serious tone as than you'd get from most Toriyama stuff.
Yeah. Um, I didn't like the characters though. I found them all very likable, even the villains.
Mhm.
Because they felt real.
Oh, for sure. Uh, One thing I want to touch on before we really start diving into it is the intro song is fire.
Intro song was good. I did like the closing credit song too. I found
Mhm.
it to be pretty chill.
Yeah. Since you've watched a little bit into the second arc, does the songs change or is it the same?
No, it's the same one.
Okay, that's solid. I mean, like, I really like the intro song. It's very good.
Well, if you notice, like watching it, you all a bunch of the characters from the second arc are in the intro,
Mhm.
which confused the hell out of me. Like when I first watched it, because I'm like, who are these characters that we never see?
I can imagine.
And then it's like, then we get to the second arc. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, let's jump into some of the characters to start out. So I believe, oh, actually, the opening scene of the series because it definitely kind of built it up more than what we saw in the manga because it kind of starts out very like horror movie, like that first scene.
Yeah, kind of.
Like yeah, it's these two guys driving a truck down through the desert, doing a water delivery, and like they're talking about wanting to see some action and all this other stuff, and they see like a ghostly figure in the fog, and all of a sudden, like a little gremlin guy jumps onto their windshield, and I don't know, it just the way that they set it up at the beginning was it definitely had some horror vibes.
Yeah, that was interesting to me. The payoff to that whole scene is very hilarious, though,
Hmm.
where we get introduced to Beelzebub,
Yes.
who is one of the three main like protagonists of this series.
Hmm. He was the son of King Lucifer, the Prince of Demons.
So I love the fact that this series has a lot of non-human characters because Toriyama has always his creature and monster designs have just always been like vastly superior to his human designs because he gets very creative and it's very fun seeing all these different wacky designs that he came up with.
For sure. Although I will say his design for Rao is very distinct.
Rao, so Rao, like initially, like he kind of looks like one of the old man characters from like early Dragon Ball, but like the way he carries himself, I think makes him stand out.
For sure.
I at first didn't think Rao was going to be a main character just because of the way it seemed like it was setting up, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, he's along for the journey.
Oh yeah, he's actually incredibly important both for the story coming up and for the story that this story is built upon.
Mm,
What with the whole thing with the Peachy people and General Zayu.
yeah, yep, that guy.
Yeah, Eggman.
Less cool, Eggman.
Yeah.
Um,
God.
and then we had Thief, the third main character, who is one of the many demons in the demon village,
Mhm.
and he's fun because like they go through. So when basically when Rao goes to the demon people to propose his whole journey idea, where he wants to find this mythical like water source, and he needs their help, and he's willing to trade. Like basically, he's willing to share it with them and like have peace. and
Mhm.
basically they decide Beelzebub's going to go, but they only have one extra seat on the car, so they can only take one more person. And
Yeah.
they end up trying out every demon in the village, and it turns out all of them are kind of pathetic,
Yeah.
except for except for Thief, and Thief's the
Wait,
one that doesn't want to go.
yeah, and Thief's not even like a good fighter or anything. He just has, certain skills.
Yeah, that come in handy later.
Yeah. And apparently, one of the things we wouldn't know at the time, but yeah, some of the knowledge that he has ends up being very important to the story.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I the main three endear to you very quick in this story.
Yes. Especially the way they interplay with each other.
Yeah, no, that's for
Um,
sure.
so yeah, Rao shows up in the village and the demon village, and he's asking for help. And at first, Beelzebub doesn't want to help him until he whips out a game console
Yes.
and says that it's part of the payment for their help. Which in the anime they just actually in the anime and the video game, because I have cracked into that a little bit. They just say it's an old game system from the past. In the manga, it's specifically a PlayStation 6.
That's funny in hindsight.
Yeah, because this is the year 2000 that this originally came out, so that is pretty funny.
Yeah,
And
PS2 had just come out.
and the funny thing too with that scene is in the manga, they blatantly say, "Oh, it's a PlayStation 6," and it even has the software for Dragon Quest 13,
Okay, that's a good joke.
which is
Well,
really funny
that's
too,
funny
because that
too.
could easily happen. That it's very possible that Dragon Quest 13 is going to be on the PlayStation 6.
I mean, at the rate 12, Dragon Quest 12's being in development, yeah, honestly.
So that's actually pretty funny if that ends up being the case.
You know what's really funny about that also though? Did you so referring to the PS2, which was the new system at the time, you remember the PS2's ad campaign, right?
No, I don't.
So the PS2's ad campaign was genius because they didn't advertise the PS2 at all. They advertised the PS6.
Fair enough.
That's one of the most genius ads ever. Where it was an ad for PS2, where the entire point of the ad was they were advertising the PlayStation 6, and it was like this spear thing that said
That's
PlayStation
hilarious.
6 on it.
That's hilarious.
Gaming advertisements used to be so fun.
Yeah. You don't even really like see ads for like systems anymore.
Do you remember the original Xbox ad?
No, I didn't see a lot of those. I didn't start being more aware of like um video games and stuff coming out until around the 360 PS3 era.
That's fair. If you want to see the sheer, just how sheer what the fuck video game ads used to be, look up the original Xbox ad. It is literally, it starts with just like a woman on like a birthing table, and she gives birth to a child and shoots the child through the air, and the child ages into an old man, and then it ends with him landing in his gravesite. It's just like original Xbox, and it's like
What the fuck?
it is the most what the fuck thing ever, but it's memorable.
Now that you describe it, I think I might have seen that before. Like
It's
maybe on like YouTube video, because every now and then I'll just get super nostalgic and I'll look up old commercials from like the late 90s, early 2000s, because you can
Mhm.
find those compilations on YouTube all
Oh
over the
yeah,
place. And some of those are absolutely ridiculous going back
that
to.
that one's so disturbing though because it's like a baby shooting through the air, screaming, and then it just slowly ages into an old man and then just grave, and it's like what the fuck.
That's so weird.
Yeah, that one sticks with me forever.
Oh god.
Oh, but yeah, so back to Sandland. One thing we didn't touch on was the voice acting.
Mm,
So we watched the dub for this, and it's very interesting to me that they didn't use Funimation.
yeah, for sure.
I don't even
Um,
know if they used Viz because it's a Hulu original.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recognize some voices.
So
The guy who plays Rao is very familiar, and I know I've heard him before. I just can't place him.
he's in a shitload of video games.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
Not
he's
a
in some animes too, though.
so I'm looking at it through his behind the voice actors. He's really not a lot.
Hmm.
Um, it's so Rao's voiced by Jonathan Lippo. Um, Yeah, he's mostly a game guy. Well, because they lifted all the voice actors from the game for the show, so I think they hired a lot of game actors.
Hmm.
Because Thief is voiced by Owen Thomas, who's also mostly a game actor. Um, the only one I recognized right off the bat was Risa May as Beelzebub, and she recently. This is ironic because we mentioned it earlier. She is the current voice of Kaoru in the new Rurouni Kenshin anime.
Okay. I see.
Um,
I knew it was familiar because I just watched that one recently.
she does a lot of games too, but she also does some anime. So
Hmm.
she's um, probably the most anime voice actress here.
Okay.
But yeah, they're the main three, and they all do a good job. Like the voice acting's solid.
Yeah, it's solid all the way through. I definitely
It
don't have any problem with it.
it did feel a little weird though, because it wasn't a Funimation production, so it didn't have that Funimation feel to it. Or Crunchyroll now, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and I don't believe it was animated by Toei either. So
I don't
it's
think
just
so.
very odd to see a Toriyama work that isn't animated by Toei or dubbed by Funimation.
Hmm. But it feels very Toriyama.
Oh, I mean, everything the guy touched was very distinct.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the general like setting of the series, obviously it's a desert world. So I mean, you see in a lot of browns, a lot of grays, stuff like that.
But the characters are so colorful that they actually stick out very a lot, like on the actual like backgrounds.
I think that's one of those things that lends itself very well to the 3D CGI style.
Hmm.
Um, and I will say, like, that first fight scene we get with the weird, um, like the weird bandit guys who are wearing like bondage gear for some reason.
Toriyama had some interesting taste on this one, I will say.
Yeah, they looked like members of Kiss with like bondage gear on. Like, it was weird.
They were like kiss posers, I guess.
Yeah. But that first little fight scene with Rao and his like little nightstick things, like that was really well choreographed, I thought.
I will say that was very well choreographed, but I could not get past like the whole he gets distracted by the gun and then the other one just walks up behind him and just whacks him. Like I was like, okay, really?
Yeah. And
It's like,
that was also the first time we heard the intro music was during that fight, and
hmm.
that it worked really well for the scene. Um, and then the following episode starts, and Beelzebub steps up, and I love how he takes them all out, but he literally just slaps the shit out of them.
Yeah, because he makes a whole point out of demons don't kill.
Yeah, he just open hand slaps each one of them and knocks them all out.
That
Like,
was actually a very interesting, like, because there's a lot of moments in this where it's just the three of them initially in Rao's little buggy thing, which gets destroyed actually in this scene,
mhm.
and then later in their tank, and they just kind of talk about the world and stuff, and like you get a lot of character development, and it's there's an interesting point where like Beelzebub legit makes the point of like he's like demons don't kill. It's like humans on the other hand they kill all the time.
Yeah, I love how Beelzebub's going on his whole rant about like, oh, but don't get it twisted though. I'm pretty bad. I
Yeah,
stayed up late last night and didn't brush my teeth. And then I slept in this morning and
and
still
still
didn't brush
didn't
my
brush my
teeth.
teeth.
Also, I stole water. He's like,
Yeah.
beat that, old man.
Well, I like how when he gets permission from his dad to go out on this journey, his dad's like, "Yeah, it could be a good learning experience for you." Oh, and by the way, when you get back, only 1 hour of video games a day.
Yeah, and don't sit too close to the screen.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty chill. The demons honestly just come off as pretty chill throughout this entire thing.
Also, his dad is just Deborah with bigger horns.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's in Japanese in in the anime, but when you're reading the manga, he's actually reading Faust.
that's fun.
But um, so yeah, they go through the whole bit with the bandits, and then they have to go and steal another vehicle, which ultimately ends up being a tank. But what did you think of Thief's thieving outfit?
The Santa suit. I was like, sure, why not?
It's just like, fuck it, why not? I'm just gonna dress up like Santa, and
Well,
like,
he looks
if
like
I
Santa.
wear this, I can talk my way out of it if I get caught stealing. Like, what are you talking about, dude?
He looks like Santa, so it made sense.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I also like how they constantly fight over driving the buggy, and Rao's just kind of like, yeah, I don't care, go
Yeah,
for it.
he's just like, you guys can drive. That's fine. I drove all the way to your village. I'm not trying to drive.
He's like, I'll just smoke a cigarette back here.
Pretty much. Also, I love the way they steal the tank.
Oh yeah, the hairspray. He's just like poison gas and just throws it in.
Pokes the hole in a can of aerosol hairspray and fucking throws it into the tank, yelling poison gas, and they all just dip. And he
Yeah,
just like wanders in and just takes the tank.
and then the tank starts driving away, and all the soldiers like, what? Like, how did this happen?
Which is just classic. And then they reuse that later on in like the final part of the arc. But
Well, it's
yeah,
implied that Thief learned it from Rao, and he's like, oh, this is a good idea.
yeah, solid.
With his cactus turd bombs that we'll see later on.
Yeah. But yeah, that was just a really funny scene that I think just worked perfectly.
Yeah, I will say though, the soldiers the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, oh, it's the Red Ribbon Army showed up. I see.
Pretty much.
Toriyama is a creative guy, but he's also very uncreative with a lot of certain things.
See, he's creative, but he has a tendency to kind of be lazy about certain things.
Yeah, it's particularly his human designs.
Yeah.
Because I will say there is a bunch of characters throughout this show that I'm like, these are just Dragon Ball characters that he reused.
Oh yeah. Or vice versa. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but when you look at General Are, uh, sure looks a whole lot like Carmine from Superhero.
Yeah, including well, Carmine with like a bitchin' like goatee, basically, or
Yeah.
mustache thing, I should say.
Hmm. So yeah, he definitely reused that design for Carmine later on. Over
Yeah,
20 years later, too. That's wild.
yeah. The king of Sandland, who is portrayed as a villain initially, but then you find out he's more of a figurehead than anything.
Mhm.
He also looks like he could be straight out of Dragon Ball.
Oh, easily. Easily. He looks like he could be like Yajirobe's rich uncle or something.
Yeah, kind of.
Um,
Uh,
so yeah, where did it go from there? They stole the tank, and then I think they were just kind of shooting the shit for a lot of it after that.
well, they were heading to their next destination, and then they spotted
Oh yes, the airship.
the airship, and I did like the way that they kind of got around that, where he just pops out of the airship and just gives it a salute,
Mhm.
and they just buy it as, oh, their radio must be down.
Yeah,
Okay, carry on.
pretty much. Only to instantly have a theft called in, like, oh, they stole that tank. Like, oh, that's the one we just saw.
Yeah, and then we get introduced to another roaming band of bandits known as the Swimmers.
Which is really funny because it's just this family, because it's like a dad and his three sons, and they're all running around in speedos and swim caps, but in the middle of the desert, and there's no water.
The animators had a lot of fun animating them. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and for
Um,
some reason they like have like weird powers that aren't explained, because one of them either just has really good eyesight or like has some sort of psychic vision, because he's able to do a perfect sketch of Rao from a very, very long distance away, and also could run over 100 miles an hour.
yeah, he's just the Flash for some reason.
Yeah, just why not? Like,
And then the other one is really fat, but has great aim.
yes, he's got like the bazooka thing, even though it kind of looks like a squirt gun.
Yeah, a lot of the weapons in this kind of are like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of weapons, there's a great moment where Rao has a side gun because he's technically a sheriff from a small village,
Mhm.
and a plot point that comes up is they ask him why he doesn't use the gun ever, and he makes the claim, it has no bullets, it's just for show. Bullets are too expensive these days.
Mhm.
That'll come into play later.
Yes. So yeah, they have their little altercation with General Are in the airship, which it turns out that they're transporting an outrageous amount of water,
Yeah,
like billions of dollars worth, or billions of zenny worth of water, I should say. Um, and they fly right above the tank because they're gonna drop a bomb on it. But the tanks have these like anti-grav crystal things,
Mm.
which will lighten the tank, but not quite enough to lift it. So they pretty much put it at like minimal weight possible, and then Beelzebub and Thief lift it so that the cannon can point directly up.
Yeah. I will say too, we had kind of glossed over it, but actually, did the encounter with the swimmers, did like they actually fight them yet?
I think that's after,
Okay.
because that was
So
when it was like the tank on tank stuff.
right. That's true. Um yeah, so we get this whole scene. There's also a moment after they so they drop the water on them, and it kind of becomes a big thing where they're like, this water had to come from somewhere.
Yeah, because they were heading north, correct?
Yes.
Because the whole time they've been going south. Because the whole reason why Rao was looking for the lake in the first place is because he happened to see a water finch, a bird that
Hmm.
specifically feeds off of freshwater fish. So he saw that and he's like, I've seen this like around this time every year. There has to be a freshwater source around here.
Mm.
So that was where he got it into his head that there was a lake or a pond or something where there was fresh water.
Mm. No, that's true. And so after they fire at the airship, they end up disabling it in the process, and it starts crash landing, and they basically decide they got to get out of there for the time being. And they make a point of mentioning that they notice Rao has this like poster, like magazine taped to the side of the tank, and it's of this woman. And Thief makes a whole joke about like, oh, that's I
Sexy
forget it.
Terrier,
Yeah, yeah,
I believe is her name.
Terry Shiva, I believe. Um, and he goes on this whole rant, and then we immediately get the reveal that Rao isn't actually Rao. Well, Rao isn't his actual name.
Right. Well, I think Rao is his first name.
Yes, but it's not the name he is known by around the world.
Yeah, he's actually an incredibly famous soldier by the name of Shiva.
Yeah, wasn't he like one of the top ranking generals at the time?
Yes, he was actually the general who led the attack on the Peachy people, which uh, was a whole thing.
Yeah, that gets explained later on. And we also find out that the woman that he has taped to the side was his wife.
Who died in the explosion caused by the attack on the Peachy people.
Yes.
Which,
And
yeah.
he's Beelzebub makes that insensitive comment of like, so if she was your wife, why do you only have a picture of her in a magazine? He's like, my entire life got destroyed.
Yeah. It's like my home was completely obliterated along with my wife. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think just in that regard, he's lucky that she was famous in the first place, or he wouldn't even have those.
Mm. But yeah, so where does it go from here?
I think this is the point where they actually do encounter, or the swimmers see them from a distance and make the report, and that was when the public becomes aware that it's General Shiva and like where they are, and that's when Ra shows up with his tank brigade.
But also in the background, the other general, the main villain of the series, I forget his name.
Zayu.
Supreme Commander General, whatever, Zeo.
Yeah.
The real villain of this series, at least this arc.
Yeah, breathing tube Eggman.
Eggman, Machine Man, T-Rex kind of with his little hands sticking out.
Yeah.
He gets like basically when he finds out that Shiva's still alive, he gets terrified. Like he's like, "What?"
Yeah, because Shiva was like a big, even before all that, he was a big deal. He was incredibly talented, incredibly strategic and smart about everything that he did.
Hmm.
So he knew
And
that he was a force to be reckoned with, and that made him really sweat.
we also find out like around this point that Thief explains the whole story of like the disaster, and basically he explains to Shiva what actually happened, which like gives him kind of like the realization, which kind of sets him over the edge.
Mhm.
And after the public finds out about him, he actually does something that's kind of I thought was kind of cool, where he actually just straight out announces himself to the world, and he's like, "Yeah, it's me. This is what really happened, and I'm going to tell everyone because I know they're going to lie about it."
Mhm.
And the general's immediately like, he's like, "Don't let him ever talk again.
Yeah.
He knows too much."
He's like, tell them if they let him talk on the radio again, I will kill them all.
Yeah, because he's telling the truth.
Yep, pretty much. Um, so yeah, then after they figure out where he is, General Ra shows up with 4 tanks. Which, by the way, we didn't talk about the design for the tanks. What did you think about that?
It's very Toriyama. It
Yeah,
looks like something Bulma would have created at Capsule Corps, if I'm not going to lie.
yeah, it's incredibly unique design for a tank. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Robo from
Yeah, kind of.
Chrono Trigger.
Just not enough Rickroll.
Yeah. um,
uh,
but yeah, it was just interesting. It's just I don't know the car designs and stuff like that. I feel they need to point out because Toriyama loved vehicles. He loved drawing cars and vehicles, and honestly, the tank was the main reason he wanted to write the story in the first place. So I felt they
this,
need to bring it up.
this is just like Toriyama really wanted to make a Mad Max parody or something.
Pretty much, I mean, almost all of his like best story ideas were just a different take or a parody off of something else.
Mm, yeah, it's
Uh,
just funny. It's funny to me. It's just like tank adventure.
Pretty much, but I really like the way it ended up
Mm.
personally. Um,
I will say the battle between the 4 tanks was really interesting because they dispatched them pretty quick.
yeah, well, I love like how instantly his first instinct was to drive towards the sun and then turn around like on the top of a hill so that the tanks that are chasing him can't get a good view on him.
Mm.
So they pretty much instantly take out half the tanks really quickly. Um, which, by the way, I noticed when I was watching it, the sound of the cannon when he shot those first 2 tanks, like it sounded like somebody bashing on like a trash can lid with a wooden spoon.
Could have been. No,
It
they just
sounded
they
like it did
just
not sound
grabbed
like a cannon at all.
they just it's simple. They just grabbed Lars Ulrich's drum sound from Saint Anger.
Yeah.
That's a reference that only some people will get.
Um,
Anyways,
but yeah, it was just a really silly like it's not the sound I was expecting when they're shooting a tank cannon.
yeah. Now that was a fun fight though. Like I like how he basically disables them all without killing anybody, which is a nice touch because they make a big
Mhm.
point about how like he doesn't kill anymore.
Yeah. Um, so ultimately they end up with just their tank and General Ra and his tank. But Ra wants to talk before they continue because he heard the broadcast that Rao had done and he wants to know what's going on because his father was actually there and died in that explosion.
He was one of Shiva's men, essentially.
Yeah. And one that he knew personally. It wasn't just a grunt. He was somebody that Rao actually knew and actually had seen pictures of Ra as a child.
And there's that
Um,
really nice flashback where you see see Ra's father like basically telling him stories.
mhm. So yeah, they kind of have their little powwow, and Rao has Thief explain the whole thing that happened with the Peachy people and how it was all a big setup. They were told that the Peachy were making a weapon when they were actually developing a machine to create water.
Yeah.
Um, but it turns out that the power source for that machine was incredibly volatile. So when they attacked it with tanks, it caused a tremendous explosion that destroyed a lot of stuff.
Yes. One of my favorite things too is before he tells Ra the story, the whole like racism subplot with like humans versus demons comes up, and
Mhm.
the and Thief's like, well, if you're gonna be a jerk, I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah, I love how like bitter he was. Like he's just super butthurt about it. He's like, "Well, fine, I'm just not going to tell you then."
And Ra's like, all right, your loss. He doesn't care.
Yep.
He eventually does tell him though, and essentially he lets them continue on with their journey. And you get this is where you start seeing a lot of Ari's character development coming through here because you start realizing really fast he's already his doubt is already starting to cast in the military.
And I love the way he goes about like confirming what he was told. How
Yes,
he bypasses Commander Zayu entirely and calls the king, and he says, "Hey, Zayu told me this thing, and I wanted to confirm it with you." And he's just like, "That wasn't my idea. That was Zayu's idea," which pretty much cemented, like, yeah, they were telling the truth. That is that
yeah,
actually happened.
because the king is incredibly gullible, and he literally. When I joked earlier that he's basically just a figurehead, he literally doesn't do anything.
No, he is like the textbook definition of a tool.
Pretty much.
Um, so yeah, ultimately, Ra, um, he and from that point on is pretty much siding with Shiva, even if he's not outwardly open about it at first.
Yes.
Um, oh yeah, we forgot to mention that while they were having their fight, the swimmers were also shooting from a distance, and Beelzebub went and whooped their asses.
My favorite
Um,
thing ever is the how the main three run away in fear after Beelzebub takes them out super fast, and then
mhm,
the big one's like trying to shoot him, and he just like straight up just kicks him in the leg and knocks him over, and it's just
yep,
like I'm like, yep, that's how I expected that fight to go.
about right. Um,
But he has to chase after the fast one, and that's how the next big plot point occurs, where he chases him so fast that he gets completely off the chart, like from where they were supposed to be. And as he's trying to get back, he encounters a sandstorm.
mhm,
Cue the music now.
yeah, right.
Which the sandstorm was fucking terrifying. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, no kidding. It's one of those things where like if you've never actually been in the desert or anything like, not that I have, but just based off of media and stuff, uh, you wouldn't think unless you've been in it like that a sandstorm would be that bad, but like it honestly is a terrifying thing.
Well, then when you realize sand is just glass, like in
Pretty much.
reality. Um, so it's not good in any way. Although in this universe, sandstorms have fucking lightning and thunder going on, and it's fucking way extra than it needs to be.
Yeah, I just realized we never talked about the giant sandworm thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that happens very early. That's how they lose all their rations and like
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons they had to steal the tank.
yeah, that and the fact that the tires all got popped by the bondage gang.
Hmm. Yeah, the bondage gang. um. So yeah, Beelzebub is looking for a place to shelter from the sandstorm, and he happens to stumble upon not only the lake, but the Peachy people, the remnants that weren't killed by the explosion.
Mm. Yeah, because when uh when Rao and Thief show up and they discover it and they're like, this must be it. Like it makes so much sense. There's the fish. Um Beelzebub discovers the Peachy people there, and basically right away it's like Rao's like, I can't take this. It's theirs.
Yeah, he's like, no, we're not going to do this to them. We're just going to go after the King's Water because this.
Yeah. He
We,
basically
I
changes
personally have done way too much to these people to do that to them, so I'm out.
his entire plan goes from finding an alternate water source to fuck it with taking the king's water source.
Pretty much,
Oh man.
which I'm all for.
And by this point, the Zao is fucking losing his mind because like everything is falling apart.
Mhm.
And we get one of like so there's another scene that happens too where they're like kind of camping out for the night. And actually this probably happened earlier, but I'm just remembering it now. They were camping out for the night, and Rao's having his PTSD over all the stuff that happened.
Mhm.
And he encounters Beelzebub outside gathering the energy from the darkness.
Yes, he's like absorbing the power of night or something like that.
Yeah, which is a very important plot point that comes in later.
Mhm.
So
Uh,
after they leave the Peachy people and they go off after the King's Water, I forget what happens next.
I think after that is what RA, because RA had made the call to confirm what they had said, and then he went on the general like airwaves.
Oh, right. I remember this because by this point now he's like, oh yeah, because Zayo's like basically telling him to get back here now because he knows too much,
Hmm.
and so he goes to go as you were saying.
Yeah, he basically goes over the radio and is like, yeah, it sure would be a shame if somebody went south along the dried up riverbed and found what was at the end of it.
Yeah, and he's like,
Oh,
remember,
and by the way, I gave everybody leave over there, so there's no
yeah,
soldiers.
oh yeah, he's like, by the way, he's like everybody at the water source. I'm giving you all leave. We'll be coming in to relieve you. He's like, remember, the water source is located south of the riverbed. Do not leak this. I repeat, do not leak this.
my
And then
my
he,
I love how in the manga he literally like he calls them directly instead of doing it over the radio, and he's just like, I'm just talking to myself. I just forgot. Oh yeah, you go down the dried up riverbed and you go and find the water. And then Rao is like, yo, I'm just talking to myself. Thank you. Like,
see, that's funny. I do like the way they did it in the anime, though. Like, just like the humorous, the more it was more epic in the anime with the whole like going across the thing, just to like rub it in even farther. that
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I like that version of it better. But both have their own charm.
The manga version is definitely more humorous, I'd
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, they immediately find out the location, and as the gang is heading towards there, Ari basically is like, "All right, men, I am now a traitor. I don't want to drag you into this, so I'd like you guys to escort me back to the capital so I can be arrested."
Hmm.
And we don't really find out what happens to him after that, other than like all his soldiers are still standing behind him.
Yeah. Well, at
Um,
least until like the end of the arc
yeah,
when the conclusion comes.
yes. Um, so the next part is then, of course, that they're taking the journey towards the water supply, and it's like they're seeing like all of these like watchtowers, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this must be it."
Hmm. And it turns out that there is a gigantic dam at the end of the riverbed.
Yeah, and there's basically the rest of the world behind its water supply, and it's which then leads you to believe, oh yeah, this is like an actual full-on planet, and this is just one small portion.
Yeah. Um.
Um,
So yeah, there's actually an outrageous amount of water. It's just that I mean, I assume it was Zayu's plan originally, but
yeah, because the king doesn't seem very aware.
no, so they constructed a gigantic dam to pretty much do away with free water.
That it's definitely another like anvils need to be dropped kind of moment.
For sure.
Um, I'm not going to get super into that because like this isn't a political podcast, but yeah, he's Toriyama was trying to say something with this.
For sure.
Um,
Um,
that is such an evil thing though, like just damming off the water supply to an entire nation just to make a buck.
yeah, it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, they show up and they're pretty much fixing to blow up the dam right then and there. But almost immediately Zayu shows up, and you see him in all his spherical glory.
Yeah, and he immediately like at this point he's so desperate because like all the military is starting to like turn on him as well.
Hmm.
And he immediately turns to like this experimental project he'd been working on, which his scientists were all like, they're not ready yet. They might kill everybody. And he's like, I don't care.
He, I love. He says, "Just stick a bomb in him and call it a day."
Yeah, he's a very not like evil character.
Yeah,
Completely.
for sure.
Um, so yeah, he basically his entire goal now is he just launches off a bunch of bugmen
Hmm.
and basically six them on the gang. and there's a very iconic scene where like Beelzebub is like talking up to one of them, and it just punches him straight in the face and takes him out in one shot,
Yeah.
just to showcase how strong these things are compared to normal enemies.
Yes. But luckily, demons regenerate very quickly.
Yes, and he immediately goes back out and starts fighting. And there's an interesting scene now where like Beelzebub's he's holding his own, but he's getting his ass kicked very slowly during this thing.
Yeah. He even gets skewered at one point.
He also gets knocked into the earth, and he's in the fucking Yamcha pose, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I was like, Toriyama can't let that go.
That was a self-referential shit.
Yeah. And he's getting his ass kicked, and Rao doesn't keeps wanting to jump in and help him, but Thief's like, no, let him do it on his own. He'll be fine. And Rao's like, but he's getting killed. He's like, no, he'll be fine. Let's go do our thing.
Yeah, he's like, no, trust me, I've been too close when he's let loose before. You don't want to get close. Like,
yeah. So Beelzebub's fighting all the bugmen. They infiltrate the ship, and this is where we get to see not only Rao do some action stuff, but also we get Thief learns from Rao and does his own little gas tactic with these cactus shit bombs, which I thought was kind of funny.
Which were we didn't mention it, but they were they were shown earlier, like I guess the first episode, I believe. Foreshadowed. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
it's late, guys.
Yes, it is.
It was foreshadowed in the first episode that they have these weird little like poop cactus thingies that that put out smoke.
It's basically Aureli's comedy poop, but it's a cactus and it shoots out fart gas. I guess.
It's strange.
It's very Toriyama.
For sure. So yeah, they're doing their thing up there, and I think ultimately,
well, this Beelzebub eventually triggers his true demon power and annihilates all the bugmen.
Yep.
Except for the one that survives, and of course, the general decides to be a dick and blow it up on him, which is very evil. But he survives, thankfully.
Yes. One thing I will say is that they definitely padded this end bit out a lot compared to how it was in the manga. But I think it is very much to its benefit that they did so, because the climax and ending in the manga was very kind of like quick,
abrupt.
Yeah, it's very quick and abrupt about it all. So I like that they added some more stuff for the anime version.
I did like too the fight between Rao and I forgot his name again.
Zayu.
That was an epic fight. Like, because by this point all the soldiers had just kind of like they're letting it happen. And the fight's pretty good. Like Rao's holding his own, but then of course like there's also we forgot to mention the scene where Rao pulls out his gun and starts shooting, and Thief's like, I thought you said that thing was empty. And then Rao's like, well, I didn't know if I could trust you guys at the time.
Yeah. Not that it would have mattered much anyway, because we see Beelzebub get shot with a gun in the like first scene of the show, and he was just kind of annoyed.
Yeah, he basically saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. I was like, that's a good joke.
Yeah, classic.
There's a great scene though between the fight up above where he has a gun and he's pointing it at Rao, and he just shoots it out of his hand like it's nothing.
Yep. And he like shoots the little kickstand on the sphere, so he just kind of tips over.
Yeah, but this was after Ari had showed up and shot him down with his tank, which was pretty awesome. And then of course we get the moment where you think Rao's gonna finally end him, but of course it's a fake out, and he shoots next to him just to scare him, because he won't do it.
Yeah, well, he kind of sworn off killing at that point, but There's a part of me that really just wanted him to shoot him in the head.
Yeah, no, I wanted to see him. I wanted to see him get wrecked. But
The dude turned himself into a cyborg to live longer anyway. You know he should have died way earlier anyway.
yeah, but of course, then he pulls a Houdini and like launches out of his like spear form into like this inner shell part, and he starts getting away. But of course, Beelzebub has woken up by this point, and he's not going to let that happen. So he just straight up launches into the sky. Not because he was going to detonate all the bombs that he had there
Mhm.
and kill everybody, but Beelzebub literally gives him basically punches him into oblivion, and he straight up Team Rockets out of there.
Yep.
And then basically that's it. They win.
Yeah, that's all she wrote. So they use RA's tank, which is significantly more powerful, to blast at the dam a bunch of times, but then oh no, they haven't done enough damage, it's not gonna break. And then the swimmers show up and they blast it with their squirt gun bazooka.
Well, I love to because it's a bazooka. Another shot just hits the dam, and they're like, "What the hell was that?" And they turn around, it's just the swimmers are back.
Yeah, which it totally makes sense that they would be the ones to help out because they're the swimmers, but they've never been
Well,
able to swim before. So
yeah, they're not bad guys. They just wanted to go for a swim.
yeah,
That's all they wanted.
pretty much.
And the dam basically blows there, and immediately the river is restored. And um, Rao makes a point of basically telling Ari, like, you should be the supreme commander of the army. I think you could do a much better job.
Yeah. I love how he goes over the radio again and he says, "Oh, the water is restored. Make sure everyone's clears out of the riverbed. Oh, and by the way, the king has agreed to use half of his money to supply everyone with food." And
Yeah, and the king's like,
basically
"What is
forcing
he
his
saying?"
hand.
The king's like, "What is he saying?"
Yeah, just forcing his hand. Like,
I also love the point of like at the end where Rao's like, "Oh, by the way, I need to borrow the tank again because I got to get home."
yeah. But luckily, the bondage gang fixed his car for him, so that's nice.
Yeah, and he gets that back for just in time for the next arc where we basically have to leave this off because that's where it basically ends.
Yeah, well, that's where what was in the manga ends. Everything beyond that, with the two new characters that we meet in episode 7, that's all anime original. So once the dub for that is finished, I'm sure we'll come back and cover that separately.
Yes. It
And
is.
by that point, I will have probably played the game a lot more, so I'll be able to add a little bit more perspective on that as well.
Does the game basically follow the story?
Yes.
Okay.
And that I also have only gotten like an hour and a half into. But yeah, it basically starts out with Rao showing up and recruiting Beelzebub, but you get to use a lot of like vehicle stuff, and I haven't got the tank yet, but I got the little buggy at the moment. We're just kind of I already ran away from the sandworm and stuff. But it's definitely it plays really well. The art style is very similar to the show. Um, I haven't even leveled up yet, so I don't even know what kind of skills you get as you go. But I think you only play as Beelzebub. But I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. It's definitely fun.
I'll have to look into it at some point.
I'm curious to see if Forest Land is a part of the game.
Yeah, because it would be a short game otherwise.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's like there's padding and stuff. I'm sure there's like because I've already gotten a couple of side quests that I haven't completed yet, but I know that there are side quests aside from just the main story and everything. So
yeah,
it'll probably cover both story arcs.
It's really interesting how like the manga is a single volumer. It's a very short read. Like it goes by really quick.
Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I'd say what they did with the anime works really well. I see. Originally, I thought it was just the movie cut up into episodes because Japan had done a movie very recently before the series was released. But then I saw an article that might be contradicting that, so I honestly don't know what to believe at this point. But it like when it starts out, it feels very movie quality. So I don't know honestly.
Yeah, I might have to look into that. Overall, though, I really liked it. It picks up from episode 1, and you kind of like you'll get through the 6 episodes like nothing because you just have to know what happens.
Yeah, it's a very easy watch. It's very, it's not one of those ones where you're sitting there scratching your head watching it. It's very simple story, fun characters, interesting setting.
Mm.
It's not a hard series to get into, and it's very short. Even with the second arc, it's 12 episodes total. Um,
Yeah.
so it's not a bad one at all.
Mm. No, I liked it. It was fun, a fun watch. I gave it an 8 out of 10 on all my ranking apps
Mhm.
so far because I still haven't finished the second arc yet. But
Yeah,
I liked it. It was fun, a fun
yeah,
watch.
for sure. I kind of makes me wish that they would animate more. I know Toriyama doesn't have a ton of stuff, but like, he's definitely done enough stuff aside from Dragon Ball and Doctor Slump where they could do more. I still like to see a Jocko special, based off of that one shot manga.
I'd still like them to dub that damn special episode with Vegeta's brother that never got dubbed.
Oh, Yosen Goku and Friends Return. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think we're ever gonna get that.
I don't get why they wouldn't. It's right there,
I think it's
but
a licensing issue because technically Shueisha um, owned the rights to it. I think it's some sort of like rights holding issue where Toei doesn't own the rights, so they can't give the West permission to dub it.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's just a Shueisha thing. It's the same thing with the episode of Bardock and Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans.
yeah,
So it would be nice if we got dubs on those and on even on Super Dragon Ball Heroes.
yeah.
That would be nice.
Even though those stories are wacky, but
Well, that's the thing is nobody watches Super Dragon Ball Heroes for the plot. It's just there for flashy stuff and what ifs and oh look Super Saiyan 4 Vegito, that's fun.
yeah,
Like that's the only reason anybody gets into Heroes.
yeah. I don't even think the card game's that fun, but
No.
that's just me.
Well, it's the same thing with like it's like if somebody who's never played Yu-Gi-Oh tried to get into Yu-Gi-Oh the way it is now, as opposed like if we had gotten Super Dragon Ball Heroes right when it came out, I think a lot more people would know how to play and be better at it because
Yeah,
at this point, by the time they released it on that Switch game over here, it had been so thoroughly established and so many different cards and variations and combinations had come out that it's just overwhelming to try and learn now.
mm. No, that's for sure.
Yeah, because I trust me, I wanted to learn and I wanted to get good enough to at least go through the story, which I was not able to do.
Yeah,
I dropped it after. I mean, I still gave it the old college try, but it's not an easy game to learn.
no, not at all. But yeah. So other than that, not much else to talk about. Not sure what we're gonna cover next week. It's kind of up in the air. Depends on timing and scheduling. We'll leave you guys in suspense until we figure that one out. But
Yeah, we have a couple ideas, but we'll talk about it as we go along.
yeah. But yeah. So, anyways, guys, once again, thanks for joining us on Geek Addicts. This is a GNC. Um, you can find Geek Addicts on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. We're also on YouTube with occasional video. Well, actually, no, this one has all video going on forward now. Hi, guys. Um, and you can find all of our links at linktree/the Barber Games. And if you'd like, you can join us at the GNC Podcast Network Discord server to find all things gaming and collecting, 3D experience, GNC, talk gaming, anime, or just general nonsense. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Have a good one.